All right, so those of you on number 7, if you want to pay attention up here, I'll give you a little bit of hand with some of the questions from number 7. So it says solve in each inequality, verify the solution by substituting 3 different numbers into each inequality. So solve, that means we need to get the variable all by itself. And I'll do A for you here. So in order to do that, we need to get t here all by itself. So let's subtract 4 both sides to get negative 2t is less than 3. Now to get t by itself, I want to divide by negative 2. So notice that we're dividing by a negative here in the inequality. So the 2's are going to cancel out, and it's going to be t, and I have to flip this sign. So that's going to be negative 3 over 2. So t has to be greater than negative 3 over 2, and to substitute, so I'm going to substitute something that's greater than negative 1.5. So I could do a negative 1, I could do a 0, I could do 1, 2, 3, 4, anything like that, any decimals you want. I might do 0. I'll do 0 first. So 4 minus 2 times 0 is less than 7. That's 4 minus 0 is less than 7. 4 is less than 7. Absolutely correct. Another one, I'll pick 1. So 4 minus 2 times 1 is less than 7. 4 minus 2 less than 7. 2 less than 7. Correct. And you could pick a third one if you want, something really large like 100. 4 minus 2 times 100, let's say, is less than, is less than 7. So 4 minus 200, well, that's going to be negative 196 is less than 7. That's absolutely true as well. So solve and test 3 different numbers. Okay? Any questions about number 7? Make sense? Okay. All right, I'll move to number 8. So number 8 says write then solve an inequality to show how many cars you would have to wash at $5 a car to raise at least 300 bucks. So $5 per car. So if I make $5 per car, that might be represented by 5 times C. C is the number of cars. And it's a good idea to keep in mind, sometimes they ask you to write this, but C would be the number of cars washed. So make sure that you know kind of what your variable represents. That's pretty important. You don't have to write it down here like this, but just make sure that you do understand that. And then you have to raise at least 300. So you can raise, they're trying to raise 300 or more, right? So this is going to be 5C should be greater than or equal to 300. So write and then solve an inequality. So 5 times C should be greater than or equal to 300. I think that looks good for the first part. Now we'll solve it. So divided by 5, C must be greater than or equal to 300 divided by 5 is 60. So they have to wash at least 60 cars to make that amount of money. So an easy way to find out, answers to real life problems. Okay, anybody have any questions about that one? Okay. How many of you are on number 9 or past number 9? Okay, maybe about half of you. All right, so the idea here is that you sort of learn from what's going on here. Certainly don't want you just to kind of copy down what I'm doing without thinking about it, so you can do it along with me is great, but just make sure that this is being useful for your help, okay? So number 9, solve each inequality in graph. I'll do A with you. So 9A, to solve, I want to get the K's together. There's 2 different K's there. So I'm going to move this K to the right side. Why? Because I'm going to end up adding K, and I like to have a positive K term when I can. So this is going to be 1, those K's are gone now, is less than or equal to 4 plus 2K. All right. So if I subtract 4 from both sides, on this side I get negative 3. Less than or equal to, the 4 and the minus 4 are gone, 2K. Now I divide by 2. Remember, I'm dividing by a positive number, so I do not need to flip the sign. But I do want to read it from the variable. You always start with the variable and you read it that way. So really this is k is greater than or equal to negative 3 over 2. That's what this looks like. Now if you wanted to rewrite that, you could. So watch this carefully. If you wanted to rewrite this, you could write this as k greater than negative 3 over 2. So if you just flip everything over to the opposite side and don't change the signs or anything, then you can flip the inequality sign, because really you read it from the variable. So if I read it this way, it's the same as reading it this way. So either one are acceptable, but just make sure you understand what this means if your variable's on the right side. Okay. I think this one says graph too. So I should check though. I should always check. So greater than 3 over 2, 0 is greater than 3 over 2, right? So if I'm graphing this, negative 3 over 2, I see that 0 is greater than. So let's check 0 to make sure it works. So the check would be 1 is less than or equal to 4 plus 2 times 0. 1 is less than or equal to 4. Is that true? Yep. All right, I like it. So should I have a hollow circle or a solid circle there for this one? Anybody? What do you think? Solid because it's or equal to, right? Very good. And then greater than is always an arrow to the right. Yeah. Okay, that one look good to you? Number 9? All right. Any questions? Okay, so number 11, I'll give you some insight for number 11 here as well. So this one has multiple steps, adding, subtracting, and multiplying, dividing. There's lots of operations involved here. So remember, we do kind of reverse BEDMAS, right? So we do BEDMAS backwards. And that means we do subtraction, addition as opposite operations first. So I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides, which is going to leave me with 3 over 4x is greater than 16. Then, if there's any multiplication or division to do in isolating, I should do that. So I'm going to do this in 2 different steps. And the first one, I'm going to multiply everything by 4. Multiply everything by 4. So the 4's cancel out here. I'm left with 3x. I multiplied by a positive number, so I do not switch the sign. And 16 times 4, what's that? What is 64? 64. Now, I get x by itself by dividing by 3. Do I flip the sign here? Anyone?
No.
No, I don't, because I divided by a positive. Very good. So what's 64 divided by 3? Is that an even number? I think so. It's going to be like 21.3, I think, something like that. So let's right. So that's 21 and a third. Right, 21 and a third. They have fractions and not decimals in the question. So in math, if you're wondering if your answer should be fraction or decimal, sometimes it doesn't matter. But if the question gives you fractions, your answer should be fraction. If the question gives you decimals, then usually your answer is okay to be decimal. So kind of check what the question gives you, because when you get to upper level math and calculus and stuff, that's one of the tips that you have to think about. How should your answer be expressed? So yeah, you can kind of simplify this down a little bit, I guess. This, as an improper fraction, would just be 64 over 3, I guess. So 64 over 3 or 21 and a third would be acceptable. Graph each solution. So here's 21, here's 22. 21 and a third would be right here. And it's going to be an open circle. Which way do I go, left or right? X is greater than, so I think I should go right. Good job. Yeah. Something like that. All right. Okay, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of time to catch up, because I don't think many of you are past 11. So I'm going to let you go back and fill in the blanks here, do the rest of questions 7, 8, 9, 11, that kind of thing. And I'll come back and give you a hand later in the class with some of the, I wouldn't mind going over 16. This looks a bit tricky, but it's really not that bad. But I'll go over 16 with you a little bit too later. Okay, so let's take a look at number 16. This one's very similar to the other questions you've done. This one looks a little bit complicated because it's got decimals and stuff, but don't worry, all the same processes are the same. So let's distribute this. To get rid of these brackets would be a good idea because this h term is not just 0.4, it's actually 3 times 0.4. So we have to kind of see what each term actually is without brackets. So we're going to distribute first. And so this is going to be 1.2h when I multiply 3 times 0.4 plus 15 is greater than 4 times 0.2 is 0.8h plus 28 when I distribute that. So now I get the h terms together. I'm going to subtract 0.8h from both sides. And that's going to give me a 0.4h plus 15 is greater than, those are gone, 28. Now I subtract 15 because again, here's the h I want to isolate, so I'm going to get rid of everything else that's around it. 0.4h is greater than, I'm not changing the, flipping the signs or anything because I'm not multiplying by a negative or dividing by negative, I'm just subtracting. So what's that, 13? And so then I'm going to now divide by 0.4, both sides. And I'm left with h. It's a positive number, so I'm not going to flip the sign. 13 divided by 0.4, it's 4 over 10. It's 130 over 4. What's that, 32.5? I'll double check that. That's correct. So graph the solution. So on a number line, I'm going to just put 32.5 on here. And you can put some other numbers too. You can put 32 here, and you can put 33 over here. And h is greater than, so it's a hollow circle. And then the arrow goes to the right. And to check would be a good idea as well. And you could just put any number in greater than 32. I'm going to put like 100. What if I do that? Well, that's going to be 3 times 40 plus 5 is greater than 4 times 20 plus 7. So that's 3 times 45 is going to be 135. Right? 135 is greater than 87. Correct. So we've double checked that with a check there, and that works out. So do the same thing for the rest of question number 16.